everyone. Welcome to the Hey CTO podcast. I'm Peter Torres.
And I'm Sara Gonçalves.
And this is a space where you can get to know a little bit better the members of the CTO Portugal community. Today, our guest is Simon Esprit. Simon, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It's a real pleasure to have you here in the show.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be able to be part of this. Thanks a lot.
No, it's our pleasure. So Simon, look, we actually already met in person, right? So before COVID craziness, kind of for the people that are kind of seeing the show and kind of meeting you for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself and also obviously about Daltix.
Yeah. Okay. So my background is in software engineering. Let's say after school joined a couple of companies where I learned about embedded software development, something I really liked. It's very low level, so you really need a good understanding of how things work, which is great because I've always loved to understand how operating systems work, how computers do their magic, these kinds of things. But always was also interested in the people side of things, so not just all machinery and programming, but also like how do people actually build software? What's required to do that? How do we make it better for people to develop software? So that side of things. I've always liked big challenges as well. So I think after a couple of years of working in companies, trying to understand what I really like, the opportunity came by to join Daltix, which was founded by two of my friends. Initially, it was they really wanted to do things with data. How can we create value out of data? How can we get insights out of data and use that in decision making? Initially, I didn't really see my added value there. I wasn't very good with data. I was more like a software kind of guy. But I think as they sold their first project and they needed to scale up their web scraping efforts and make all of that more reliable, it became clear like, hey, there's actually some very cool distributed software challenges there. They asked for my help a couple of times and they kind of like sucked me in like that. And I was like, oh shit, this is a lot of fun. I really was sold on the challenge. I also really believed in the idea. I started really understanding the value of data as well. I hopped on board and helped developing the web scraping systems. And then once we have the web scraping systems in place, also the data processing and storage systems. Maybe a bit about what Daltix does before
I was going to ask you that because I actually know what Daltix does, but you're talking about scraping and web crawler and all of that. So if you could kind of give an overview of kind of the problem that Daltix is solving, kind of the value proposition, that would be great.
Yeah. So what we see is a lot of retailers, and we're focusing mostly on like grocery retailers like Continent, Pingo Dos here, Auchan, but also we have a lot of our customers are in the Benelux area. We see they all want to become way more data driven. So they want to understand, okay, if we set our pricing and we want to be competitive, what is our competition doing in terms of pricing? What's their assortment? So we saw a need to provide them of high quality data. So in the past we delivered insights as well, but we started focusing, okay, no, we will be the authority in delivering high quality and curated product data so that then you can use that in your decision making processes. And we focus a lot on the data quality because it's a big transition starting to use data. It can be scary. Can you actually trust the data to make your decisions? Can you trust humans? It's also another conversation, right? But we want to make sure that they actually can trust the data because it's qualitative, because it's correct. And that's what we do. That's what we focus on nowadays.
Fantastic.
Cool. Yeah. So from what I'm understanding, so you're already in Daltix for some years, right?
Yeah,
and it was a transition, almost 5, and it was a transition like from an individual contributor, like a software engineer, to a CTO. How it was that transition for you?
It's definitely a very, very interesting transition because at first, I use my expertise to build the systems, to build the first versions of the systems that can actually get us going as a company. But as things grow and get more and more complex, there's only so much that I can personally know about scraping and data engineering. So it became a responsibility to finding other very talented people, even way more than I am, and ensuring that there's an environment in which they can actually create these systems, and solve these technical challenges, and so that we can reach our business objectives. And it's initially it can be seen as a bit uncomfortable / scary, because if you do your work, your output is directly what you're doing, what you're contributing to the company. But as you become responsible for other people, it's actually, the output that they're delivering is how you are measured in terms of success. And the feedback loops are different, right? If I write one day great code and it works, nice, I'm happy. If I, steer an organization, it's not like at the end of the day I will see now everything is working fine, so I can pat myself on the back. So I think that's one of the biggest changes in order to evaluate yourself. It becomes much more difficult on the short term. You need to look more at the long term of how things are going, and figure out ways to really assess whether or not you're doing a great job. And I think that takes some getting used to, but it's very rewarding as you figure it out as well, because you can have a very big impact like that.
Indeed. And did you feel every now and then, or at least, throughout these 5 years, that's I don't know. Usually we call it like kind of the imposter syndrome, because when you're a kick-ass engineer, right, you're writing code, you're getting the feedback that you just mentioned, right? Someone's got kind of writing that looks good to me, and you kind of, and you're shipping a product. So you get at the end of the day and you know exactly what you've built, and that builds confidence, and it's good for your ego, for kind of, things that are definitely important for us, like definitely on the basis of the Maslow pyramid of needs. But what? Now that you're a CTO, and just like you mentioned, now you really rely on others, and others are doing that sort of stuff. And probably your day, I don't know, I'm just kind of imagining, it's probably a lot of meetings, a lot of coordination.
Yeah.
And and sometimes, at least it happens to me every now and then, it's like, okay, so what have I built today? What value did I add? And sometimes it's challenging, isn't it? I don't know if you feel the same or not.
It's definitely like that, and I think you have the feeling where you question, like, is what I'm doing the right thing? Are people happy with what I'm doing? On the other hand, something I've noticed, it is great coming from let's say from software data engineering, having done these things myself. It puts me in a position that I can, certainly while the company is this small, let's say, really imagine, okay, what would be a good environment for everyone to work in which environment would I like to work personally, doing this work, and ensuring that it actually can be like that, and that the business can thrive, and everyone's happy. So I spend a lot of my times doing, for example, one-on-ones, and through that you get a good feeling, like, are people happy? What's on their mind, and what actions can I take?
Okay, and Simon is back. Okay,
the
cool.
whole power went out in the house.
No worries.
It happens.
It's completely fine. So we are still recording, and so would you like to finish your thoughts, regarding the question that we were talking about? That is, okay, as an IC, you do your contributions, your pull requests. Maybe even if you have a compiler, you actually see that the code works, right? Or maybe at least pass the test. And obviously, as a CTO, it's not that same. And you were talking about something that it was really inspiring, and I really can relate with. That is creating a great environment where I would like to work if I would be an IC, a data engineer, and so kind of having one-to-ones and providing so much attention to people, exactly because of the idea that your output is actually measured by the output of those people and not by your individual contributions, right?
Yes, we have a very people focused culture. We are very respecting of allowing people to to fully disconnect when they're not working. Now it's by law, I think, here in Portugal. But even before that, we were always like, turn off your Slack, turn off your phone. Like, if something is really, really, really badly happening, we'll give you a call. But that almost never happens. So we're quite, let's say, almost like strict on that. We make sure people take up all their holidays if they have any left. We allow people to work only 4 days a week instead of 5. That's something we did. Yeah. And we are remote first to make sure that people can actually live and work where they work best, and make sure that they can, not like hybrid, because with a hybrid, even if they want to live further out of Lisbon, they would still need to do long commutes for those 2 days. We value working together as well, but we feel that there's enough technology to support it, and there are ways to get enough together as a team often enough to accommodate for that. But we still have an office for people that are living in Lisbon and actually prefer to work from an office. So we try to accommodate to all cases. And I think that's great, being able to define these things and create that, and then seeing people and how happy they are with that, and the commitment they give you in exchange for that is just a great thing, I would say.
I love that. I think that one thing that actually COVID brought, at least in my opinion, is that maybe before COVID, if we thought about perks, we would think about, oh, I want to choose my computer. Oh, I want to have 3 different restaurants that I can pick lunch from. And one of them is better be sushi. And I want to, I don't know, like so many things that probably now looking back, I would consider vanities. And today, if someone asks me kind of what is like the number one perk, the one that you really value the most, definitely, I think that the remote first that you just mentioned, having this freedom to live anywhere you want, knowing that obviously you have your commitments, you have, you need to be synchronous or async with your team, but making sure that you can actually, you don't have constraints regarding where you want to live and raise, your family, or even if you don't have a family, where you actually want to spend your time. I think that's the number one perk. I think companies that are hearing us today, I think that is being valued more and more, and that is probably something that people think of very seriously when they are choosing where to who they want to work for.
Gives you a better balance between life and work. More freedom to decide where to invest your time better and where.
For sure.
Exactly.
And I'm curious about something. So looking at your LinkedIn, I noticed, so you were working as a software engineer in a stable place, right? And you mentioned that this company was founded by 2 friends of yours. You didn't immediately join to them. What was the trigger point that made you accepting that challenge to leave your comfort zone, if you want to put it like that, and accept a new challenge with a small company, something that was starting? What was the change there? The change on the mindset, or the trigger, the motivation?
I would say the biggest motivation was seeing the challenge they were trying to solve, and also seeing the value I could bring personally in solving that challenge. Because initially, when it was way more focused on data, I was like, I can probably help a bit, but you guys know a lot more about it than I do. And I was really, let's say, happy with the challenge I was solving at the company I was at the time. It was great. But once there were more and more like of these software related challenges, and I saw, oh man, these are great challenges to solve. There's definitely also value in what you're doing, because they landed the first customer, which is Macro. I think they're also here in Portugal, very quickly. So it really showed, okay, what they are doing is very relevant. Combine that with interesting challenges, it makes for a very appealing case. And then I helped out during, I think it was during my winter holidays. I helped out for a week with one of the projects, and then you're like, okay, I don't want to go back to what I was doing. This is so fun.
You got hooked.
I got hooked. I got addicted.
No, but this is actually really interesting, because for people that are considering, taking a chance on a startup, it's actually very interesting the way that you did it, because from at least what we've heard, so you almost waited, or it just happened, that the company landed the first customer, which gave you probably a different sense of security to say, okay, so there is something there. There is a market fit for the product, right? And even after that, you kind of did a trial, right? You did a kind of a project, a gig during your free time. Say, okay, let's have some fun and see how can I actually work with them, and probably even meeting each other on a working context. And after all of that, then obviously, we actually had kind of a marriage, so to speak, where you say, you know what, this is what I want to do. But it was really interesting because you really de-risk your choice, your option, by doing a lot of things that have definitely kind of built up on the confidence of making the right decision.
Yeah. It's also I was having, to be honest, a great time where I was working at time. It was with Flair. They make thermal cameras, and I had a lot of opportunities. I was traveling every 3 months to the team in California there, which was also a great experience. But I really thought about, okay, this is American company. I don't really have a very big influence. I did some very cool projects. One with Apple, another one with Red Bull, Formula One racing.
Nice.
That got terminated due to some higher up decisions. That's quite demotivated. And then I was like, okay, I really want to be able to have a bigger influence. So even if I stay at this company or another one, by the time I get to this point, it's just way too long. I'm quite impatient in that sense, and that really helped with making this decision. Like, okay, it's still risky. It looks valuable. There's awesome challenges. Let's go for it. I'm very happy with the decision I took at the time.
That is very clear for sure. And truth be told, right, Daltix has been growing as a company and being quite successful. So definitely it was a very smart choice, for sure.
Yeah.
And tell us one thing. So I think that you already mentioned that you were born in Belgium, and you're here in Lisbon. And so actually I don't know the story. So how did you end up in Lisbon? And is it actually everyone in Daltix also based in Lisbon, or actually it is kind of spread it right now across several countries? But first tell us like your story. How did you end up here?
So when we were just three at Daltix, we noticed, okay, well, we need to find talent, and it's very difficult in Belgium to find talent. And we heard that a company I used to work for has an office here in Lisbon. I was super happy about all the talent they are able to attract here. Another company that we work with, Cloudoki, Rui is also in the community, also had an office here, also super happy about it. So we're like, hey, we need to go and check this out. It's an awesome city with a lot of sun and great talent. I mean, why not? All of our stuff is all of our computers are in the cloud. There's nothing really aside from customers, of course. That's why we didn't all move here. Our CEO stays in Belgium to be close to the customers. And me and a colleague at the time, we moved to Lisbon to build the engineering team here.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. And did you move like your entire family, or you actually you met? So your wife, she's Belgian as well. So you didn't met her here. Okay. Wow.
That's actually a fun story. My wife is Belgian, but she was still studying at the time or finishing an internship for 6 months. But there was kind of like, I cannot really wait 6 months to move to Portugal because we need to keep the momentum going and build a team there. So we agreed that because our CEO is good friends of us, she actually moved in with him in his apartment, and I moved to Lisbon 6 months before she could join me, which was
and you were able to manage everything.
yes, but it was I underestimated greatly the challenge that would bring. It's but it all worked out quite well, but definitely an underestimation there of how much you get a lot of support from. She was my wife. We actually married, and a week later I moved to Portugal. And I was like, wow, yeah. I actually get a lot of support from her, when I eventually stopped working, and I really missed that. It was quite tough, but we made it through. So it was part of the roller coaster, I would say.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. And so right now it means that you have like teams distributed between Belgium and Portugal, right?
Yeah.
How is that working for these past years? And then with the pandemic, did you felt differences? Any challenges of having distributed teams?
Yes, I think our biggest challenge is the fact that all of engineering is here in Portugal, and all the commercial roles are in Belgium, as well as our customers. And our customers, some of them are very big and well known, like Unilever or GFK, but some are just local Belgian retailers. And for the team, it's sometimes very hard to imagine, we don't really know these shops, so it's a bit more difficult to be proud that you have them as a customer. And that was quite a challenge initially, because there was nobody here from the commercial side in Lisbon to bring all of the context on the customers. And
Sure.
I think in the roller coaster stages of a startup, you need to really involve everyone a lot and bring all the context as best as you can. And that was I think a challenge we did underestimate, but we also learned how to improve that a lot. We do like monthly town halls to get the whole team together, virtual drinks. We use this Slack donut
Yes.
system to pair people up internally in the company across countries. So we've learned how to cope with the challenge, but it was definitely a challenge initially.
Sure. And the 1 hour difference is something that you've been working fine with that. So have you been kind of having put a strategy in place, like, okay, maybe we in Portugal start working a little bit sooner to get a little bit more overlap with Belgium, or you don't have even that concern at all? Like everyone just was working on their regular time zones.
Yeah, everyone's working on their regular time zones. We have the teams. Initially, the team really supporting our customers, so delivering our data to our customers, used to be in Portugal. Then it was tricky, because if something happens at the customer at 10 a.m. Belgium time, or at 9 a.m. Belgium time, and by the time someone in Portugal starts working, there's a couple of hours to get very anxious, let's say. But now this team is fully in Belgium as well. So if something happens with our customers, they immediately can help them, and the rest of the engineering team can then help and jump in as quickly as they can. And so far we haven't had any issues with that.
Oh.
And you find any challenges, for instance, to keep like the same culture, the same values of teamwork and team collaboration with two different countries? I don't know if the cultures are too different. If you feel
interesting. I like that one.
If you see those differences or not, I don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely been cultural differences in the past, but I think in the last years, they've really improved greatly. We've got them closer together. We've made more time available for different teams to talk with each other, from people from different teams to talk with each other across countries. And I think that really helped aligning the country and getting people more together, essentially, even virtually during COVID. I think that has really helped. But yeah, there's always small cultural differences, right?
Sure.
But sometimes we just talk about that fact, like, hey, this is, for example, how in Portugal we react to these things, and this is why, and the same in Belgium. And I think if you get to an understanding, people understand. Yeah, people just understand things better, right?
Yeah,
No, for sure.
Talk about things.
Yeah.
I actually believe that one book that is probably like the book is great, like, don't get me wrong, but one book that I'm pretty sure that is selling like crazy right now because of remote first and how global the market became, the talent market. It's called the Culture Map from Erin Meyer, and it's really, really interesting because it kind of really explains cultural differences, from the United States with Portugal, Spain, Italy, probably Belgium, France, and it's funny that although sometimes, and I'm talking by myself, like, I always kind of didn't value that much, because at the end of the day we are all people. So sure, like, okay, I eat at 1 p.m. Maybe you, Simon, like to eat at noon, so no big deal. But actually, there are differences between countries or cultures that can really, really make a difference. And for instance, one example that I can bring to this conversation is, so at least I'm Portuguese, and if I'm, let's say, I'm on an interview, job interview, or in a very serious meeting, by default, I don't want to ask questions. So let's say I'm on an interview. Let's say that you're trying to hire me as a software engineer. By the way, terrible idea. I would be lousy. But it's at the end of the interview, you would say something like, "Okay, so do you have any questions for me?" Probably my first instinct as a Portuguese would be to say, "No, I'm good. I don't have any sort of questions or doubts. I know everything. You did such a good job, Simon, in explaining everything that you said. And that would be probably my first instinct. But for instance, if you grab this scenario and you take it to the United States, the first thing that the Americans will think is like, okay, this person is not curious. If the person doesn't ask questions, the person is not curious. Well, probably the thing that I would be doing is like, no, you did such a great job of explaining everything. I don't have any questions. And for instance, this is a cultural difference that can really, really mislead someone in choosing a candidate, in reading a person. That probably from wanting to say that you did such a great job, almost complimenting you because I don't have questions, to be interpreted as, okay, this person is not curious, which is super funny.
We really value transparency as well in our culture. That's something we tell to people joining, no matter where they are from. If something is going wrong, just tell us about it, right? If we know that something is challenging you, we can help you. If you keep it to yourself and you try to solve the challenge yourself, then if it doesn't work, you'll get stressed. And then eventually we'll need to help you anyhow. So it's just better that we all know if someone's facing a challenge or going through a rough patch in their private lives as well. We're all humans. Let's just talk about that fact and take that into consideration. It promotes a more, like, say, safe culture, safe environment for people to operate in. Same if you see a project is going the wrong direction and you might not hit a kind of like due date that we've set together, then okay, just say that, right? Don't wait until the day before so that maybe magically you've been able to catch up, which almost never happens. Just say, hey,
never happens.
We're probably not gonna make it. Is there something we can get out of scope, or are there things we can reprioritize to accommodate for that? And that works a lot better than just being quiet about it and
keep everything for yourself.
And that's cultural too, for sure. But that, experience taught me that difficult conversations, the longer you wait, the more difficult they become. So much rather kind of go through the rough moment of saying, hey, I have this bad news. And sure, it's a tense moment. No one loves to go through that conversation, but waiting, it will just get everything worse. So definitely not worth waiting. No, not worth waiting at all. Super cool. So Simon, tell me one thing. We already mentioned the book. So we talk about Culture Map. I'm pretty sure, I don't know how avid of a reader you are, but definitely I'm really curious to know, and probably everyone that's watching this show. So how do you make sure that that you continue to to be relevant in such a constantly changing industry and evolving, right? We have tons of frameworks coming out every single year. And that's only on the tech side, right? And we are talking about leadership, and we can talk about one-to-ones and emotional intelligence. So many tools that we as leaders need to use on our day-to-day lives, our job. But how do you make sure that you're kind of really staying relevant on top of your game? Like, is it more on books or kind of conferences? How does it work better for you?
So I really enjoy reading books because you can get a lot of wisdom from people that know a lot of things about a certain subject. So that I really do. And aside from that, even if you know something from a book, it's still a challenge to know when to apply it, how to apply it to your current context. And that I've gotten a lot of value from surrounding me with other people that know a lot of things as well, that have been through certain journeys. and kind of like brainstorming with them around certain challenges, which is really why I like this community, for example, right? You see a lot of good questions being asked, and you see people contributing to them. And if you feel like, hey, can we maybe have a private conversation about how you solve that? They will always get back to you. And then you combine that with things you've read in books, and I think it's a good combination. So that's how I do it basically.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Super interesting.
Yeah. And if you look to your professional journey until now, can you point out some of the biggest lessons that you learned throughout that journey, or something that you will do completely different if it was today?
Yeah. So one of them would be it takes a while, but this thing, like I said before, like being open about the challenges you're facing as a leader, it can be quite scary to say to the team like, hey, there's this issue. It's not, I don't have a solution yet for it. I'm working on it. You kind of initially want to only bring that challenge once you've figured out how to solve it, but then you miss out on the opportunity for them to actually help you in solving it. And I think that's a big mindset change. Like, oh, guys, I'm trying to figure out how to solve this issue. Who can help? Who can help me think about it? That's one thing. The other thing is, I think it's quite easy to underestimate how complex it is to build an organization. So initially, we hired a lot of, let's say, more junior people, but then the organizations grows quite fast, and then you're actually demanding quite a lot from them. So it is actually good to surround yourself with people who know, who have experience, who've been through things. Early as possible, because if the organization grows, things only get more complex at a very quick pace. So you want to have a good let's say foundations in place to help with that growth.
No, for sure. And one thing that definitely you said that I really like is that you just mentioned a huge cultural mindset of leadership. That is the important part of, oh, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And this is like super old school, right? Kind of, I got raised hearing that, right? Kind of, that boss being super demanding and just, I don't want to hear your problems. I want the solutions. And, and thank God, for the 21st century, for new books, for leaders like yourself, we're actually now thinking on the other way around. It's like, no, please bring me problems, like, bring the reality. Let's work out solutions together, because definitely we want to make sure that we are all involved, we are all committed in solving problems. Obviously, there needs to be a balance between asking for help and obviously having also kind of, trying to figure out by yourself. And so it needs to have a fine balance. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't be afraid of bringing problems to people that can actually help us, because it will make us not only better, but definitely we can solve the problem faster and together. So it's a win, right? No, not a problem.
Yeah, and about the second point, this is actually something that we already talked about in one of these conversations in this podcast, which is we need to hire always for what the company needs tomorrow and not today. Sure. So it's curious that you mentioned that, because we already talked about this, and it makes total sense.
Because now we're so this year we've really looked at our business plan and identified, okay, we should really double down on providing high quality data as opposed to also insights. We are now let's say getting more investment to grow to different countries in Europe. So the company is going to grow quite fast in the coming years. So it's good that we have a good, let's say, base in place, because things are going to accelerate in the coming years. It's going to be quite exciting.
For sure. Just before we start landing the plane, so there was one thing that you said at the beginning of our conversation that really kind of spiked my curiosity. That was, so you and your friends, you were in Belgium, you decided to open an office in Lisbon because of the talent. And I think that I heard you say that it's difficult in Belgium to find, the sort of talent that you were looking for. Why is that? Like, what's your take on that difference, between Portugal and Belgium in terms of tech talent? What do you think it's kind of missing, or the difference between these two countries?
There's a couple of things. I think I have the feeling that universities in Portugal started focusing more on IT after the crisis happened, because they saw, okay, if we need to rebuild the economy, we need to invest in things, that are good for the future. And I think that they quickly identified IT as being one of them. So there's just a lot of people here that know programming, that have, while being in university, already coded on some projects. So that's one thing. I think on the other hand, there's Lisbon, certainly now in let's say the age of being more remote, Lisbon is just a great city, great weather, great culture. It's a lot easier to attract people even from other countries to come and live here, right? It's an easy case to make. If you visit Lisbon once, you're like, oh damn, I can imagine myself working from here and without the barriers of having to be in the same country as the one you're working in. Why not work in Lisbon in the sun, and go surf after work? So I think that really all helps.
It's an easy sell. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a good mix.
Oh, very well. So should we go for the last question, Sarah?
Yeah, let's go for the last two questions, more personal and more fun, so we can end up this conversation in a good way.
Yeah.
So the first question that I have for you is that if you could have dinner with someone, anyone in the world, who would that person be?
Yeah, if I could have, I really enjoyed high output management from Andy Grove, who used to be CEO of Intel and helped the company make the transition from, I think it was making microchips to CPUs. It's a very insightful book. It's not super tech heavy, but more like how do you just manage a company in general. So I definitely would like to hear his thoughts on a lot of subjects.
Is he one of the references in terms of how do you see kind of leadership and managing such a challenging company?
Yes. The only thing is I think he died not super long ago, a couple of years ago, but yeah, he's definitely very inspirational when it comes to managing
a company like that. Wow, for sure.
Yeah,
Very well.
yeah.
Now, last but not least, last question. So we know that you had a parental leave, right? Not so long ago. So first of all, congratulations for sure.
Thank you.
And you actually it seems like you took the time to start learning a little bit about game development. So I have two questions for you. So I'm a parent as well, and I know how challenging it can be, kind of to raise kids, and especially on the first few months. So one, how did you find time to do anything at all besides changing diapers? So please tell us that secret. And why game development? So what's it about the gaming development that attracts you?
Yeah, relate to finding time, I would say ask my wife. No, but I was definitely able to help out, but initially babies sleep a lot, so I was able to use that, let's say, to my advantage. Why game development? So I don't program nowadays, or not very much, but I really like programming. And I also wanted to use these 2 months to fully disconnect from work. It's been a fun ride, but it's definitely been a taxing one. So I was like, okay, I want to program, but I want to do it in a completely different domain. What else am I very interested in? That is games. So I really was curious, like, how are these games built? How do they use? How do they, let's say, how do creatures know when to attack you? How does all of this work? So I started reading books about game development, and then programming some 2D games to keep it simple and manageable in the limited time that I have. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Will we be seeing any sort of games made by Simon in the near future, or not really?
I was hoping that I would be able to, let's say, continue this as a hobby after work, but it's quite difficult and challenging. So I'm using my time to rest up instead of continuing on my game development ambitions, let's say.
No, smart choice.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think that's it. So Simon, thank you so much for being here with us. It was good fun and definitely really inspiring to know a little bit more about you, your career, your decisions. Kind of how well Daltix is doing so far, which obviously it's a joy to hear that. And for you that it's on there, you are on the internet, and thank you everyone for watching us. We really hope that you got some really useful insights and inspiration for a leader like Simon. and yes, definitely we hope to see you again in the next episode of Hey CTO. Thank you everyone.
Thanks a lot.